The following program contains the opinions of the host, guests, and call-in participants. These do not necessarily represent the views of this show's distributors or sponsors. This program may contain obscene, profane, or otherwise objectionable language. Viewer discretion is advised. Man, am I glad to see you people. It's Monday night, May 20th, 2024. It's 11 p.m. on the East Coast of the United States, 8 p.m. on the West Coast, 2 o'clock in the afternoon in Sydney, Australia, and it's 10 p.m. Central Daylight Time here where I'm sitting in Northeast Minneapolis. I am Jim Peters. Welcome to another edition of Jim Peters at Night, episode number 120 if you're keeping track. I don't know why you would be. All right, so what do you want to know? What I got going on? Okay, I'll tell you what I got going on. First of all, I'm having surgery 2 weeks from today. I'm having my hip replaced. I basically can't walk at this point. I ended up staying inside for 3 days in a row because now here's the deal. Those of you who are not familiar with Minneapolis, you maybe read about this. We're in Northeast Minneapolis, right at Broadway and Central, right pretty much at the heart of the neighborhood. We have Art Whirl here this last weekend, which is the local art festival, and it's now I'm not saying this myself. The USA Today has said this, and even the New York Times has said this. It's the most attended arts festival in the United States. For 3 days, the neighborhood is nuts. In fact, I was watching one of the local television stations, and they're doing a story on it. They said, "Well, what do you say to people? How do they find a parking space?" And the woman says, "Don't drive." And she's right. So we didn't leave the house for 3 days because even our back parking spot in our for our house, which is on an alley here, in the district. I live only a couple blocks away from the office here, from the studio. If I move the car out, somebody will take it, and even though it's my space, it's private. You know, it belongs to me. It doesn't matter. Someone will take it. So I spent 3 days cooped up at home. I basically can't walk at this point, and that's fine. I'm actually not. If I don't walk, I'm not in that much discomfort. And also I'm not having any trouble sleeping either, which most people in my condition really do. My problem is when I walk, and so after 3 days of being cooped up, I decided to go to Costco this afternoon and get some supplies. And my God, I thought it was going to frickin' kill me. Jesus Christ! It's like it was not pleasant, not at all. And I keep forgetting, I'm thinking, well, I'm just going to go to the store. Well, Costco's a huge store. And the stuff I want, the Kleenex tissue paper is way at the back. And it's like I'm walking around and I'm thinking, what the hell am I doing? I can't walk, you know? Jesus Christ Almighty. So anyway, I got we're doing a little slightly abbreviated schedule here for the next 2 weeks. We're taking Wednesdays off because like I said, the problem isn't like I sit to do this, so it's fine, but this whole thing is really really tiring me out. That's the thing. I'm having a very hard time just even staying awake. I mean, I'm exhausted from fighting the pain or whatever the hell it is. I don't know. So at any rate, so we're taking the 2 Wednesdays off, and then starting on June 3rd, we're taking a whole week off. And that's it. I'm having surgery on June 3rd, Monday the 3rd, and we're just gonna take the whole week off. We're coming back on the 10th. Should be have all our ducks in a row, ready for the summer. Lots of big guests, all this sort of stuff. So let me give you the schedule of the next couple of weeks here. Tonight is Monologue Monday, and we might do a slightly abbreviated show too. I don't know. We'll see. Maybe about 45, 50 minutes. If you want to call me up, I'd love that. You can call. There's 3 different ways. Our Blog Talk Radio is working this evening. We've been spotty the last couple months, but we're up and running right now. You can call me on the audio line 563-999-3435. We can call in with your webcam on whatever device you're on, including your phone, by going to that URL, jimandknight.com/call, push the big blue button at the top of the screen, and you're in the queue. This could not be simpler. I know, I know it's a little counterintuitive. So, well, I got to go to a web page to connect my webcam. Yeah, you do. Yeah, but we got it figured out. This is, and I'm not just saying this. Talkers Magazine said this. We're the first talk show in America to take video phone calls. We figured it out, okay? And so we made it super simple too. That's the deal. So you go to that web page right there with your with the device that you have your camera on, and you click the big blue button. You're in a preview. Go to preview page and check your camera and mic, or if you got more than one mic on your device, you can pick a different one. All that sort of stuff. You know, and as soon as your hair is all nice and fluffy, you can hit the join button at the bottom, and you're in the queue. It's simple to be. Also, if you want to text us, that's this number right here. 408-458-5088. I got the text thing running right here. We get it in real time. You want to just like drop me a note or a question or anything, you can do that. So, what do we got going on tonight? We got it going on. You know that. It's Monologue Monday night. Like I said, maybe I don't know if we're gonna how long we'll be going. Tomorrow night, Ed Morrissey, managing editor of HotAir.com, and man, he's got a few things to say. So I'm looking forward to talking to him. That's tomorrow. There's going to be a pre-taped interview. We're taping tomorrow afternoon, which is actually one of the reasons I might end this a little early tonight. Wednesday, as I said, we're taking this Wednesday and the following Wednesday, and what is that, the 29th off. Thursday, Murray Sabin, economist or extraordinaire, is joining us. And here's what happened. So the Dow hit intraday 40,000 last Tuesday or Wednesday. A friend of mine writes me a note. He says, excuse me, he watches the show. He says, here's the deal with this. Everyone's touting this big stock market thing, but he said the underlying numbers on the economy don't look good right now. And he ends his email with, I wonder what Murray Sabin thinks about this. I'm the one reading this. I'm thinking, I wonder what Murray thinks about this too. I just called him. I said, hey, come on. So he's on Thursday night. We're gonna have to talk to him. He kind of lays it out as simply as economics is a very complicated thing. That said, and I'm going to talk about this in a few minutes. Joe Biden, this inflation thing is entirely his own doing, completely. I mean, he did this. Everyone told him not to do it. And what he did is that the economy was already on the mend from COVID, and he decided to spend $1.4 trillion to jack it up. So it wasn't necessary. And everyone told him that. I did, I'm the guy sitting in Minneapolis in my underwear. I don't know shit. And I know this, Well, he did it. And, what did you know? They printed way more money than the money was worth. And now we have inflation. And once you get it, it's almost impossible to stop. So my friend, and he's right, the underlying numbers on the economy actually look terrible, even though, and the Dow on Friday closed above 40,000 for the first time ever. So we're going to talk to Murray on Thursday. Next Monday, it's Memorial Day. We would take that off anyway. So we got that off. That's the 27th. The following day, Tuesday, the 28th, is our month in review panel. That's Tim Conaway, Don Zoro, and Larry Newman. Now, they would normally come out on Monday, but Monday's a holiday. So that we would have taken Monday off even regardless of my surgery. We would have taken that off either way. So we moved them to Tuesday, then Wednesday, the 29th, right? Yeah, we're taking that off. Thursday, we have a guest. I can't say who it is yet because I haven't absolutely confirmed it. But I'm pretty certain we do have a guest booked for Thursday. You can call it the mystery guest. That's what I put down on the outline here. It's a mystery guest. That's Thursday, next Thursday. What was that? The 30th, right? And then we're taking the entire week of June 3rd through 8th off. We come back on Monday, June 10th, hit the ground running. Yeah. Whoa. We have a sponsor here, and this is our sponsor. It's Conk News at conk.com. This is their website, and they've actually, I've been telling you, it's more or less a one-page website. They took out a lot of the pages on the website. I just noticed a couple days ago, most of the pages in the menu are now gone. It's a one-page website, and here's the deal. So, this flipped over. while we were on the air. I set this up around half an hour before we go live. And this Calling News gets all its news every 3 hours from 75 different news sources. So the servers go out every 3 hours. They fetch any news that's new. They come back. They lay it out on the page in chronological order, regardless of where the news is from. So it's the closest thing you get online to a traditional newspaper. When you click on a photo or you click on a headline, and the headlines are not rewritten, they're from the stories. You go directly to that story. You don't go to a front page. You don't go to an ad. None of that crap. You go directly to the story in question. So it's a pure, clean website, and the news sources are fantastic. And this is really interesting here. I read this earlier on the upper left corner. I don't know if you can see it on your screen, your tiny little phone, but the headline is Scarlett Johansson turned down an offer to become the voice of OpenAI, which she was in that movie. Was that movie called Her? Or She, I can't remember, where she played intelligent artificial intelligence program. She was the voice for it. So I don't know if that had anything to do with the fact they wanted to do that or not. Probably. You know, who doesn't love this woman? He's talking about Colin Jost marrying above his station. Well, who am I to talk? I did too. So oh man. Yeah, anyway, and my picture is on the right side here because we're sponsoring it. That's awfully nice of them to put that there. So, no, I'm sorry, they're sponsoring us. What am I talking about? No, no, no. They're sponsoring the show. So that's what we got going on here. So anyway, you want to check that out. Uh, it's at conk.com, conk.com. You can't find a better news source everywhere. I use this all the time to prepare for shows and find news. It's super simple, super easy. There's no registration and it's free. Got that? You don't have to register to access it, and it doesn't cost you anything. So check that out if you get a chance, okay? That's Conk News at conk.com. All right, so what do we got going on now? I'll tell you what we got going on now. First of all, I want to talk about this briefly. So the president of Iran was killed in a helicopter crash yesterday. The reason I want to talk about this is because this has been intimated in the news, although they didn't actually. I haven't heard anybody declare this, but apparently the weather was so bad that the original pilot of the helicopter refused to fly. I think that I got that correct. Now, you have to understand the egotism of people who think they can beat Mother Nature. My cousin is an airline pilot, a very well compensated and a high level one. He flies the big jumbo jets across the Pacific from Los Angeles to Lake Tokyo and that sort of thing. That's his job. He was also, I'm not going to name the name of the airline. He was the youngest pilot this airline ever hired, and they hired him because he got when he graduated from flight school, they immediately turned around and hired him. So he got a whole bunch of flight hours flying other students. So anyway, the reason I bring this up is here's the deal. My cousin tells me, I asked him once, I said, what's the most scariest flight you ever did? And he said, yeah. He said, I know the answer to that easy. He said, I was flying charter. I was flying the private plane of a very wealthy man, and the weather was terrible. And I went back to him and I said, look, sir, I recommend we do not fly. And the guy said, no, fly. And so he went back up to the cockpit and they took that plane off. And he said it was 4 hours of white knuckle fucking flying. He said they were lucky as hell they got through that. And it reminded me of that because, you're only one step away from no luck. And this is what happened to this guy. Apparently, I'm reading into this. So this may or may not be true, but apparently the Iranian president told the pilots, we're going to fly. Screw you. Get up there and do it. Yeah, well, you're dead now. Screw you. And the pilots and everybody on that plane or on that helicopter, all 9 people died. So, and people are saying, giving this guy condolences. He was called the Butcher of Tehran. I mean, this guy killed when his regime took power. They killed thousands of citizens, not hundreds, thousands. They murdered thousands of people. Just anybody who even came close to opposing them, they killed. I mean, it's like these are not nice guys. And that brings us to Hamas in just a second. But at any rate, I want to lead with this. This last weekend, Hunter, or not Hunter, Joe Biden did a commencement address at Morehouse College, did a fundraiser in Georgia, and then flew to Detroit and addressed the NCAA convention there, did another fundraiser. Here's the deal. Now, at the convention and at the graduation ceremony, you have a fixed audience. People are there for other reasons. But these two fundraisers he did, not no more than 100 people showed up to either one of them. And this has been posted online, been posted on X. Actually flipped their URL over today from twitter.com to x.com. So people are posting a video of Biden's motorcade driving through Detroit, and no one cares. No one's looking, no one's stopping, no one's waving. There's no crowd, none. And I've been saying this for 4 years. Now, this is really this is interesting. We have already booked a guest for next month. We have a guy coming on here from the local Minnesota Republican Party. I don't know. I'm certainly not going to name him now. And there's a good possibility I won't even mention his last name during the interview. And he's coming, and he knows Jeff Meyer knows this guy, so he's coming on with Jeff Meyer. The two of them are coming on together. And this guy says he knows how locally the Democrats cheat the local elections. He said he knows how they do it, and he's going to explain it to us. So now, my friend Tim Conaway, who's on the Month in Review panel, he's an election judge in Minnesota, and he doesn't buy any of this. And that's very important because the thing is, he's actually in a position to know, kind of, sort of. I mean, way more than the average person, anyway. You know, he has very strong feelings about this, and in some ways, I'm with him because we have the single most secure system voting registration and ballot system in the country here. But the whole, apparently, and this guy's going to tell us, who I'm talking about is coming on in June, the whole is mail-in ballots, and that's where they're cheating these elections, and they're treated completely differently than the regular ballots. So it'll be interesting to hear him. But I've been saying that the fact that Joe Biden can't draw a crowd anywhere, anytime, anyhow, at all is evidence of the fact they cheated the 2020 election. And no, is that proof? No, not at all. No, and and Conaway, he says, "Well, Jim, you have to understand, nobody voted for Trump. Nobody voted for Biden. They voted against Trump." And I do understand that. I know the vast majority of people who voted for Biden were actually voting against Trump. I know that. But everybody, 95% of them, no, I don't buy that. I just don't buy. This guy has no support whatsoever, none, from anybody, and never has had it. It's I mean, right now, you're talking about these polls where they say, well, Trump's up by 5, he's up by 6. I think it's going to be a landslide. Who knows what's going to happen between now and November. But still, the way it's looking right now, I think they're going to get creamed. It's looking exactly like Jimmy Carter and Ronald Reagan in 1980. Where in the end, Ronald Reagan won by a way bigger margin than anybody ever expected. So, and the other thing I was thinking the other day too is that you think about this. I mean, since the Civil War, since 1865, since Lincoln, there have been 30 presidents. There's absolutely no doubt at this point that Biden will go down as absolutely the worst of all those 30. I can't speak before then. I've always said, and Bill O'Reilly actually, apparently he watches the show. Ha ha ha. He picked up on this too. He said, no one will ever be worse than James Buchanan, because James Buchanan, well, and this is a complicated issue. Buchanan didn't actually cause the Civil War, but he could have stopped it, and he didn't. That's actually what it is. He still gets blamed for it because of he could have stopped the proceedings, and he didn't bother to do it. So in some ways, he's responsible for that. Probably no one's ever going to top that ever. I mean, he was a truly terrible president. But you look at the 20th century, we have Warren Harding, who was basically considered a failure. You have Herbert Hoover, who almost was, not quite. And of course, you have Jimmy Carter, who was almost a spectacular failure. But I can qualify every one of those things. I've said this before. Carter at least acknowledged things weren't going well. Now part of the reason things don't go well for Carter, part of it was the fact, and I mean, it's amazing because he has virtually the perfect resume for a president. You can't get any better. Frickin' nuclear physicist in the Navy, owned a small business that was a large small business. So we understand how all that stuff worked. From what I understand, Carter Farms is still the largest producer of peanuts in the United States. I don't know. His name's still on it. I don't know if he still owns it anymore. I don't know, but it's still named after him, and they're the it's a large company. It's not a Fortune 500 company. It's not a private publicly traded company, but it's still a relatively large. It's a very large small business. That's a better way to put it. So you would think that because of all those things, and also he was an excellent governor of Georgia too. He's that also. But for some reason, especially when it came to foreign policy, his judgment was unbelievably bad. It was. But like I said, the real important thing is that, and people say it's true. He was a pretty decent man. I mean, he was a good man. He knew he would acknowledge that things weren't going well. He constantly was acknowledging it. Biden is I mean, Biden just gets up and lies and lies and lies, and I still haven't figured out if he's doing it to cover his own ego or trying to convince people of something. There's a part of me that thinks he's not smart enough to do that. I mean, we were talking about this last week about the fact that, during this interview with Aaron Burnett on CNN, he says, when I came into office, inflation was at 9%. No, it wasn't. It was at 1.4%. I mean, it's a complete, utter, total lie. That there's just no way to put it. And then the amazing thing is 2, 3 days later, in another interview, he said the exact same thing. No one's stopping him. And not only that, the interviewers aren't stopping him either. I mean, Aaron Burnett should have said, just a second, Mr. President. That's not right. And everybody of any knowledge at all knows it isn't, knows that's not true. And this is the problem. They're gaslighting the public, and they're wondering why the public, people aren't voting for them. Did it ever occur to them ever that maybe if you want people to vote for you, maybe you should try doing a good job? I mean, it's really. I've thought about this. The Democrats, they do everything. They'll pull every trick in the book except actually doing a good job. The American public is not that stupid. Maybe they used to be, and maybe that's what they think. Well, we used to be able to pull the wool over these people's eyes, and it's not working anymore. It's not. I mean, something about that happened in the last few years. Something about Trump has woken people up. And so I mean, the fact of the matter is the economy is a disaster, and he just won't now acknowledge it. Now, I'm looking forward to talking to Murray about this on Thursday. There's an article in Breitbart today about the fact that, well, here's the deal. The economy's only a disaster if you're not rich. And I'm not, it sounds like I'm being funny, but I'm not. If you're in the top one third of income earners in the United States, things are actually going pretty well for you. That means you probably own stocks and you can probably afford. Inflation hasn't taken a very, very big bite out of your personal life, you know. And so that's the thing. If you're in that top third uh, percentile there, you're probably not noticing it. And who's that? That's pretty much every damn journalist in the country. They don't notice it. No, things are great. What are you talking about? Said Jake Tapper, who makes $700,000 a year. He did. Things are fine. I don't know what you guys are talking about. But if you're making $55,000 a year, you got a real freaking problem. Anyway, Biden does these fundraisers and no one shows up. Now, you think about this. We have been the first presidential election of any contest is 1792. George Washington was appointed by Congress. The first president, and that's in the Constitution, is appointed by Congress. And then he was renewed by Congress in 1996. In 1800 was the first real election. That was John Adams and Thomas Jefferson. There's 15 million people in the country in the United States at that time. Those two guys, with only 5% of the population of the United States currently, probably drew more people to their campaign events than Joe Biden did in 2020, and still does to this day. You think about that. Nobody likes this man. Nobody. He has no support whatsoever. I mean, the whole thing, as far as I can tell, is one big put on. It's one big goof. He has no business being president. I'm not saying just because of the job he's doing. I don't think he was actually elected. I really don't. I think Trump was right. I think that the fix was in. That's my personal feeling, and I base it primarily on that. And people say, "Well, that doesn't really that doesn't well." I spent my entire life in the entertainment business in one sense or the other, and I know that the size of crowds can make is a very big indicator to how much what people think of stuff. And anybody in politics knows this too. I mean, here's the counter to that. Well, first of all, I don't have to tell you. You probably know this that when it was about a week ago, not this last weekend, the weekend before, Donald Trump drew at least 80,000 people to Wildwoods, New Jersey, a blue state. At least the estimation is 100,000, and people have doubted that estimation, but that was actually the New Jersey State Police that put out that. They handled the crowd. That was their estimate. So I have a tendency to think it's about right. It was at least 80,000 people. 80,000 people to our campaign event. I mean, it's really true. He's basically the Taylor Swift of politics. I mean, who is has anyone ever drawn 80,000 people to a campaign and rally? Ever? Anybody? No. No. And why did I bring that up? Because the thing is, so here's the opposite story. In the 2016 election, I don't know if you guys know this, but as far as I can tell, and a lot of people agree with me on this, that Trump pretty much figured he was going to lose the 2016 election until about a week before the election day, when his crowd started to grow in massive numbers. And the night before the election, that was a Monday night. I can't remember the actual date. His last campaign stop was in Seattle, Washington, and they're flying back to Washington, D.C. And Trump says, "What are we flying over?" And then somebody said, "Well, Minneapolis." And he said, "Let's do a campaign stop in Minneapolis." So they called the local conservative radio stations and the TV stations and said, "Look, we're going to do." They called at 10 p.m. Central Time. Said, "We're going to do a campaign stop at the Minneapolis airport in a hangar at 3 o'clock in the morning." This is with 5 hours notice. Got that? 5 hours notice. On top of that, in Minneapolis, it's raining, cats and dogs. It's like a big storm. We're gonna do a campaign event inside a they reserved some, hangar or something like that. 3 o'clock comes around, and Trump steps off the plane. There's 26,000 people there. I mean, this is freaking unbelievable. You can't make numbers like this up. 26,000 people showed up in the rain to see Donald Trump on 5 hours of notice in the middle of the freaking night. I mean, that's the opposite. So who do you think the public likes more? And they've been pounding and pounding and pounding on this guy for years, and yet not only can they not make him go away, it's like the more they pound, the more popular he gets. There's a guy named Brandon Morse who writes for Red State, and I'm trying to get him on the show. And he wrote an article today he said, the most powerful emotion in politics and in life, and he's right, both, is not love or hate, it's spite. And he said what happens is that, all this lawfare stuff, and Trump's in court and all this crap, that the more they do this, people come out and say, "Well, F you, I'm gonna vote for the guy anyway." Just out of spite, just because you're effing with the public. And yeah, he's right. That is what's going on. Anyway, that's my prediction right now. I think that the what's going to happen this November is exactly what happened in 1980. I think it's going to be a blowout unless something happens. But here's my prediction on that too. You're talking about what's called a black swan event, which is an event that's a momentous event but nobody can really predict what it is, and I can't either. I think it's going to happen. I think it's going to hurt Joe Biden, not Donald Trump. It might have something to do with the Middle East, might have the economy. Um, Murray Sabin's been predicting for 3 years, and we'll talk to him about this again, that before election day, there's going to be a huge economic upheaval in the country. He has predicted this. Now, I'm starting to think his timing might be a little off based on what I'm starting to see. I'm starting to think that might happen, like, after the first of the year in early 25, but and of course, Trump will get blamed for it then too, even if he fixes it ASAP. But, I don't yeah, it's really I think there is gonna be a black swan event. I think it's gonna hurt Biden. That's my personal thing, and I don't know why I think that. It's just I just got a women's intuition or something like that. I don't know, like I got that. So we had the dynamic duo of Jennifer Oliver O'Connell and Jeff Meyer on here a couple weeks ago, and we were talking about how the thing about the economy, about the gaslighting the Democrats are doing. Now, here's a quote from this is from Bart Business Digest, and they're trying to explain why the public likes Trump's economy to Biden. I don't think you need any explanation, but it's an interesting quote. Here's a quote. Biden falsely claimed that Trump's policies had left the economy in ruins during the campaign, and then he exaggerated the economic peril when he took office to justify a spending spree designed to placate his left wing base and claim credit for a recovery already in motion. And yet, that's why the money was worthless. I can't, this guy is like the most spineless freaking person on earth. It's like, it's like he's flip-flopped on Israel simply to try to give himself an advantage in an election. Never mind that people are going to die. That's the thing I find. He does not care. I mean, he is. I have come to really despise this guy, and this isn't the same kind of like, Trump derangement syndrome where nobody even bothered to know what Trump was about or anything. They just automatically hated him. I did not automatically hate Joe Biden, but I've grown to. Like, this is not good. What's going on here? This man, he's a shallow, callow human being. He just is. Uh, yeah, I can bitch and moan this all forever, I suppose. Now, I put this in in the rundown for today. In the show description, if you've read it somewhere, wherever they were posting them, about this. I don't know if you saw this, and yeah, this is one of those times where I should have run video, and I could have had video of this because this was on C-SPAN, public domain. I could have done it, but I'm just not. I'm not health wise. I'm just not up to doing that shit right now, folks. I'm hoping that when we come back after surgery in June, I'm hoping I have a little more energy. But so, at any rate, Marjorie Taylor Greene, MTG, and AOC Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez got in it, and then a woman named Corbett, Claudine Colbert, in some congressional hearing room. Oh, I don't know if you saw this. It was just hilarious. So it quickly devolved into personal insults about appearance. And Marjorie Greene said at some point to Corbett, she said, "Well, maybe because of those you can't read because of those fake eyelashes fluttering in front of your face." And And AOC says, "Don't even go there." And then she says, "Baby girl, don't go there, baby girl." It's like, and all of a sudden we're in the ghetto. It's like, you know, and Corbett raises her hand and James Comer is running the meeting. Poor guy. I mean, so she raises her hand and says, "So since she made fun of my false eyelashes, can I have put in the record about her? What does she call her bleach blonde, uh, bitch body, butch body? That's what it was. Yeah, something like that." And Comer says, "What?" Poor guy. I mean, and the men are gathered in the back. They don't know what to do, and these women are just flinging it. I mean, it was just hilarious, absolutely hilarious. Now, the reason I'm bringing this up is because I think there's a good point. Charlie Hurt gets on Fox News last night or something like that, and he says, "Well, the real problem here is this was a huge distraction for what they were actually trying to accomplish." And nobody remembers that. I don't even though it was something relatively important. I can't remember what it was, but all anyone remembers is how this meeting devolved into BS. And yeah, that's all I remember too, because I'm a shallow idiot. I just like, and listening to these women, oh my God, it was so catty, it's unbelievable. It's like, baby girl, don't you go there. Okay, sure. Men, well, oh, all right. There's this. I was going to say men don't do that, but that's not actually true. There was about 3 4 months ago where what's and I can't remember the name of the senator. He's talking to the head of the Teamsters union, I think it is, and he referred to the fact this guy insulted him in public in some article, and he said, we can throw this down right now. And he says, yeah, let's do that. And he says, and then the Teamster union president says, well, you start. And he says, sure. And he stands up and he's about to take it, to roll up his sleeves, and everybody's saying, no, sit down, sit down. I mean, they're almost at blows, so no, it's a different style, but no, men aren't any better. So, man, I gotta tell you though, that was the women are way more entertaining. That's all I'll tell you. Oh, Jesus. Our friend David Strom at Hot Air, he's the associate editor there. And I'll tell you, he's the guy I think is coming on a week from Thursday. I'm not really sure. I haven't really pinned that down yet, but if it looks like he is. He's going to be our mystery guest on Thursday. It's kind of like, what's my line? And of course, that means nothing to anybody, does it? Game show from the 1950s, you know, shit. John Charles Daly. He was a journalist. Those people actually, the people on those panels at that time, they were actually they did. Bennett Cerf was the publisher of Random House, and there was Dorothy Kilgallen, who just had a fascinating life, and also, I hate to say it, a fascinating death. So she died telling everybody that she had some real scoop on the JFK assassination. This is around 1965, or a couple years after it happened. And just before she put that out, she died in her bed at home. And it's like no one understands that she was in good health. She just, not to mention the fact, supposedly the book she was reading was upside down. So, and the other thing about Dorothy Kilgallen too is that in an era that really valued glamour, she was not a particularly attractive woman either. There's that too. So, and was it Trump or somebody from that era actually said that? I can't remember. Made fun of her looks, but she was a fantastic reporter. I mean, she dealt mostly with Hollywood gossip shit, but every once in a while she came up with she was on a real story. And suppose she was telling everybody she knew, she said that I have something on the JFK assassination that's gonna blow the whole thing up. And no one ever found the article she wrote or her notes. Never, it's like, now the weird thing on that, if you're gonna get into the weeds on this, her husband was home. So, if someone actually did this to her clandestinely, it's I think they lived in a high rise in Manhattan, so no one's gonna, like, break in the window. I don't know. It's just the whole thing's very, very odd. But anyway, Strom wrote an article about the fact that, the article's called "This Is a Mystery to Me," and he's harping on him and he gets on the show basically like a coffee clutch and bitch and moan about this for 60 minutes, but it's really true. Why does the public believe anything the mainstream media says anymore? Now, there's good evidence they don't. I mean, you look at the ratings for CNN and the subscription sales for the New York Times and that sort of thing. All this stuff is going in the toilet. But still, the fact is that when the New York Times says something, people's first reaction is to believe them. So the last time Strom was on here, and we're bitching about this, a friend of mine watched the show, and he said, "So you mean," he says, "the New York Times is really printing all these lies all the time?" And I said, "Yeah, they are." And he said, "Well, can you give me an example?" It's not a loaded question. He actually wants to know. And I have to admit, I want to talk to David about this. Off the top of my head, I couldn't think of any one thing, and because it's one of those things that glorious sense of riches. I couldn't think of any one example, even though there's so many of them It's like overburden by choice. It's hard to explain to your average person, especially your average intelligent person, that these news sources that you've been trusting your entire life can no longer be trusted. As of what, maybe about 10 years ago, something like that, this whole thing started going the dumper. It actually started before Trump, but Trump definitely accelerated it for sure. No doubt about it. And so how do you, Strom's article here, the one I'm referencing, is about the fact that, how come the public isn't unbelievably mercilessly mad about this? And I wonder the same thing. And I'm even told, I wrote David back. I said, I wonder, my problem in doing this show is that I don't affect enough anger. I do actually wonder that. I mean, it's terrible. One of the primary reasons I'm doing this is because all the mainstream media lies so much, because they need a counter. And David and all the people who are in conservative media, this is basically kind of, I mean, everybody kind of has this underlying mission to counter this stuff. I talked to, like, Jeff Meyer owns Current News. I talked to him, he's like, "We talk about this all the time." And the thing is, nobody other than maybe Fox News, they are becoming an 800-pound gorilla now. But other than them, nobody in this business on the conservative side has a lot of weight in and of themselves. But the hope is that you add our voices together and maybe they start to resonate. That's the hope. I mean, I'm only a little cog in a big machine. Now, Fox News, that's completely different. They have basically taken over from CNN of being the default go-to news source in the United States, and that happened when it wasn't what happened just recently? Geez, I can't remember. There was a news story, and for, like, the first time, like, ever, nobody went to CNN, everybody went to Fox to check it out because no one goes to CNN. No, I mean, I've said this before, I can't stress this enough. CNN's right well, in the last 32 months, a month ago, CNN saw a slight uptick in their ratings for the first time in like 3.5 years. I mean, it's been going down every month for 3.5 years, and finally it went up a little bit. But that's like the first time. Their average audience now in prime time is like 400,000 people. And in the cable news business, anything under a million people is considered zero. And they're not even making half a million. So, I mean, that whole thing is completely blowing up. And I don't mean that in a good way. So I don't, here's I'm putting in a plug for what I do here, and what Strom and Ed Morrissey and Jennifer Oliver O'Connell and Jeff Meyer, all these people, what they do, and that is, no, you can't trust the mainstream media anymore. You just can't. CBS News, NBC, you can't trust this. It's all bullshit. I watch Nora O'Donnell. I'll be honest, I'm a 60-year-old pervert. I watch it because she's a very good-looking woman, and the newscast is terrible. There's that also. It's like I watch just to see what kind of freaking trouble they're going to get in by what they're saying and not saying, and the liberal bias on the news media is so unbelievably bad that, and this is not my opinion. Every survey done for like the last 20 years by the Poynter Institute says that consistently 90% of the people in the news media business in the United States are liberal. 90%. It's a consistent um, statistic, anywhere from 89 to 91%. Always comes up. So you're wondering why your news is liberally biased. Well, there's the majority of the reason. Let's talk about the Pope for a second. Like I have any business doing that. All right. So okay, Pope Francis is pretty much, he's a pretty liberal guy too. Uh hold on. He said, speaking of Nora O'Donnell, she did an interview with him recently, and he doesn't speak English, so his part had to be translated. But he said in that interview that a lot of American Catholics are too conservative. He basically said they have a suicidal attitude toward religious conservatism. He said that. Now, okay, that's fine. And he's entitled to his opinion, and he's the Pope. But he also said, uh, in that same interview, and I'm glad he said this because I said this last year when this came out. Excuse me. There was a sudden flurry of articles that said the Pope has finally blessed same-sex marriages. I said, no, he didn't. No, he didn't. I said, no, he's blessing the people in the participants in the marriage, but not the marriage itself. They're two different things. And wouldn't you know, that's exactly what the Pope told Norah O'Donnell in this interview. He said, no, we did not bless same-sex marriages. We only blessed the people involved. He said, everyone gets individuals, humans, we all get blessed. He said, the church blesses everyone. But no, he said, we're not blessing the unions. And so here's another example of how the mainstream media has failed you. I'm sitting here, at my in my little studio in Minneapolis. I'm telling you, no, 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 no. And there was a few other people who are doing the same thing, who are getting online and saying, no, 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 he didn't bless, but no, no, everyone's just running with it. And I know one of the tactics of the extreme left is that they will pound something into the media so that it actually ends up changing. In other words, the people who are running it basically kind of give up. Oh, no, no, he blessed same-sex marriages. No, he didn't. Yes, he did. Yes, he did. Yeah, blah 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 blah. Blah. Well, now the Pope says no, we didn't. And he said exactly precisely what I said at that time. I, and so how do you believe these people? How many times do they have to screw you over before you say hell with it? Are you buying the New York Times? I haven't bought a copy of and I don't subscribe online. And it's basically now the whole paper's got a paywall. So you basically, unless you have a subscription, you can't see it, any article. If you're paying for that shit, you're wasting your money. I mean, it's years ago we used to say it was birdcage fodder. Now I don't know if you can say that if you print it out. I don't know, but no, it's wrong. What's going on this is bullshit. It's a propaganda arm. Now there's something. Let me see if I can find what I was looking here too about the fact that what's going with stuff that's going on campus. These campus uh, protests. And as somebody has pointed out, it was a professor from what was it, UCLA? I can't remember. Who said, "No, no, you don't understand. These kids aren't protesting Israel or they're not protesting for Palestine. They want to overthrow the United States government." And your first reaction is, and this is the problem we have constantly here. I will throw out stuff, even in the UFO realm too. I mean, we've thrown out stuff. People say, "Oh no, you can't do that." It's like no one's going to believe that crap. It's like, here's an example that Bigfoot is a paranormal entity. That Bigfoot is maybe a extraterrestrial. And people say, "No, no, no, no." And my good friends come on the show. They're Bigfoot investigators, and he said, "No, no, no. Bigfoot is just an undiscovered primate," and that's of course makes a lot of sense. I mean, I've said this before. There's a whole bunch of animals we did not discover till relatively recently. I mean, the most common one is the giant squid, which was rumored for 2,000 years, and they didn't catch one until 2006. Gorillas were rumored for hundreds of years, and they didn't actually confirm the existence. They didn't catch one until 1855. So, okay, that's a little while back, but still, the fact of the matter is the same thing. They were rumored for hundreds of years, and no one ever, there was no confirmation. So the fact that we have a undiscovered primate living in the forest in northwestern United States is not that big a deal. It just isn't. Now, my friend Larry Newman, who's coming on the month in review panel next week, he's a Bigfoot investigator for the Bigfoot Field Research Organization. He said they recruited him because he was a police officer or a police investigator. Excuse me. Well, I guess that makes him an officer too. But he was a police investigator, so he knew proper investigating techniques. And he said he decided to do it even though he didn't believe in Bigfoot at all. He said, I was extremely skeptical. And he said, yeah, they want some honest, investigation techniques. Sure, I'll give them to him. And he said he was skeptical until he spent a night in the Ozarks in the forest with a looking through an infrared camera, and he saw a family of Bigfoot. He watched them for an hour. Now, it's pitch dark. You're in the middle of effing nowhere. I mean, this is like there's you can't get more remote than this. You know, you can't see, and other than through the camera, they couldn't see anything. Now, he said it was dark as night right in front of your face. You know, and he said and after that he said he believed in Bigfoot. He said, "I watched, Papa Bigfoot, Mama Bigfoot, and Baby Bigfoot, just doing their thing for an hour." So, I mean, so that's a highly plausible explanation. And then Stan Gordon, and also who was it? Who else was it? Was it, Kathleen Martin? Don't wanna put words in people's mouths here. We have some pretty, A-list guests on the show. Sometimes I think Jesus, why do they come on? but but Stan Gordon said he said I've been investigating this for 30 years. Something's definitely going on. These are not regular, ordinary animals. That's what he said. I mean, he started investigating UFOs, kind of switched over to Bigfoot, and he said no. That's what a lot of people said. There's a paranormal aspect to this that can't be explained. First of all, number one, a lot of people have said they've seen Bigfoot disappear right before their eyes. That's one. You're looking at a Bigfoot. I mean, there's a woman, I can't remember if Gordon told me this or somebody else did. I read this in a book. There's a woman who said she's standing 6 feet away from a Bigfoot, 6 feet away, to the point, scared out of her mind because this animal is like 9 feet tall, and it just disappeared right in front of her eyes. And then there's other people who said that Bigfoot has telepathically communicated with them. And this is a really weird thing too. For people who say they've been abducted by aliens, that and be there where they establish telepathic communication, in their mind they speak faultless English because the way apparently this works is that your mind is the translation, not them. So I don't quite understand, but there's people who say Bigfoot has telepathically communicated with them when they're in their presence. So, I mean, how do you explain all this crap? And then on top of that, there's a lot of people who said they've seen Bigfoot in the same area as flying saucers, uh, supposed ET spacecraft. There's a theory that Bigfoot is a clone uh, that would be a DNA clone of the ETs, humans, and somebody said grizzly bears, and that makes a lot of sense. If you could clone three animals and put them together, Jesus Christ, shit. I mean, I was going to say gorillas, but no. Apparently, it's grizzly bears because there's a lot of people who have misidentified Bigfoot, grizzly bears as Bigfoot. That happens a lot. Because if a bear stands on 2 feet, and some bears can do it for short periods of time, it's pretty imposing. It looks like another animal. But the problem with that is, bears, even the talented ones, can't do it for very long. So people say they've seen Bigfoot running through the forest on 2 legs. Well, that's not a bear. That can't be. I don't know. How did I get onto this? It's like, uh, oh man, I don't know. Here, we're gonna go to part 3. So part 3, if you never watched the show before, part 3 is the weird stuff. I suppose I should run a bumper. Here, let's run the bumper. Here. This is our 12-second bumper, folks. Look how classy this is. Yeah, how about that? Alex K did that. He did our intro too. So we divide the parts of our show. So part 3 is the part where we do the science stuff, the paranormal stuff, the UFO stuff, and just weird crap. And I have some weird crap. All right, so uh, Elon Musk is predicting that we will have a human city on Mars within 30 years. He actually thinks it's going to be 20. He says he's giving himself some leeway, but he said 30 years. Yeah, I don't know if I think we'll make that. I've also said my prediction is by 2070 we'll be flying faster than the speed of light, and if based on what I know, I think we're going to make that. easily before the end of the century. But I think we'll do it before 2070. So yeah, um, that's kind of cool. The New York Post ran an article a couple days ago about the fact that, and you've probably heard about this before, but apparently now they're actually starting to document it about the fact that people who have organ transplants have a tendency to take on the personality traits of the people who own the former owners of the organs. And apparently it can be quite, there's people who say people said they didn't know shit about music, and then all of a sudden they're playing a guitar or something like that, or, it's like it's can be quite dramatic apparently. So there's a company, not a company, I think it was at a university in England, if I'm right, that started actually documenting this. They're trying to figure out, first of all, if they can conclusively say it's true, and basically how it happens, because nobody really knows. The French post office is releasing a postage stamp that, for the, anniversary of the baguette in France, and it's scratch and sniff. Okay? Need I say more? You scratch it, it smells like a baguette. Does it make you hungry? I don't know. I don't know, and finally, and I put this in the show description tonight too because I just find this so unbelievable. I'm talking to a friend of mine tonight. He's asking me about the show, about this afternoon. I said, "Well, we're gonna in July. It's gonna be our 1 year anniversary. We have to come up with a story of the year." Now, so far, I have to tell you, it's running away. I don't think anyone's gonna bet less this. It's a story about the woman in England who has 2 vaginas, and she's decided that as long as her 2 boyfriends stick exclusively to 1 vagina each, she's not cheating. That's my story of the year so far. Like, that's my story, I'm sticking to it. You're gonna argue with me? It's like, "No, you don't understand. She has 2 vaginas. You got that? 2, and she has 2 boyfriends." So, but this might come kinda close, and this is also in England, a woman who had to go to rehab because she became addicted to cheese. She spent $6,000 a month on rehab to get over her cheese addiction, and she loves cheese. And so I'm telling my wife this stupid story, and my wife says, "Well, didn't she ever have a problem with constipation?" I don't know. It wasn't in the story, I didn't ask. Yeah, she's addicted to cheese, alright. Yeah, big wheel of cheese. Alright, folks. Okay, I tell you what, that's our show tonight. Look, I'm sorry, I know usually we go longer, but I'm kinda not up to it. You'll have to forgive me. It's like, I'm gonna go take a long nap now, and then, we're doing an interview in Ed Morrissey tomorrow afternoon, and we'll play that tomorrow night. We give all our guests here the opportunity to tape interviews in the afternoon because for a lot of people, especially on the East Coast of the US, 11:30 at night is pretty late. So, we do that, about half of them take us up on it. I'm always kinda surprised at people who don't, but no, there's some people actually prefer to do it in the evening. So, that's my story, I'm sticking to it. The cheese, rehab, and, 2 vaginas and 2 boyfriends and everything. And yeah, uh, and Bigfoot is an ET. Yeah, that. Larry Newman's gonna hate me. So we'll be back tomorrow night with Ed Morrissey. We're taking Wednesday off, and then we'll be back on Thursday with Murray Sabrin, economist. I wanna thank you folks for watching. Always, really appreciate it. Um, yeah, I suppose I should talk this up. If you're going to follow us anywhere, please do it on Rumble. We're on YouTube. I think they're shadow banning us. I assume we've been flagged for misinformation 5 times. I'm assuming at some point they were gonna cancel our ass. I just assume that. Facebook already did. We're off of Facebook. They canned us. They canned us. So, because apparently I'm talking, I say some really, really, really controversial things. Jesus, I don't think so, but whatever. Whatever. So yeah, if you wanna follow us, go to Rumble, and we have 2,000 followers on Rumble between my profile and the show itself. And I don't do anything else on Rumble, so I assume it's for the same thing. So, yeah, if you wanna follow us, do it there. I really appreciate it. Good night, Esperanza. Good night, Uncle Donnie, and good night to you wherever you are. We'll see you tomorrow night, folks. Take care.